Welcome back to the Cozy Reading Corner. Today we have an exciting video planned. I'm specifically doing this on my YouTube channel so that I can yap about all the books that I read in January. So today is going to be a duo kind of video. We're going to be going over all the books that I read in the month of January, my thoughts on them, my ratings on them, and then we're also going to be diving into my February TBR. So let's go ahead and dive into it. All right, so we read a total of 6 books in the month of January. So I wanted to read, is it 6 or 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, 7 books. I can't count. I originally wanted to read 2 books a week for the year for 2025 in general. So I'm already 1 book behind on my Goodreads reading goal. But the reason why I think I'm 1 book behind is because a majority of the books that I read in the month of January were big honkin' fantasy books. So it was a big book month, literally and figuratively. Anyway, the first book that I went ahead and picked up for January for 2025 was our first book club's pick. If you didn't know, I do have a book club. It's available on Discord. It's always linked in my link tree. If you wanted to be a part of it and take a look at it, it's completely free. But the book that we read and we voted on and chose was Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. Now, I had read the Kingdom of the Wicked series, I think in 2023 is when I started reading those. It might have been actually 2022 even that I started reading that series. And I did enjoy the first 2 books. The third one took a dramatic nosedive, in my opinion. I hated the third book. So I was apprehensive picking this up, but I was pleasantly surprised. This gave kind of Bridgerton vibes when it came to high society to some extent. And then also we have this underlying story of fae and dark, sinful princes and different things like that. There's the trial element. They're basically going from trial to trial to try and unlock this item that they covet. So all in all, it was very intriguing and kept me on my toes. I love a good trial trope in a book. So if you enjoy like a trial component to your books, like think Phantasma or The Hunger Games, Serpent and the Wings of Night, then you'll really enjoy this book as well. It's so big because their love story is wrapped up cohesively in 1 book, which I really did appreciate. I feel like nowadays with fantasy books, there's often like trilogies or duologies to try and get the love story drug out over multiple books, which makes sense financially, but it's also extremely satisfying to me to have the entire story, the entire romance wrapped up in 1 cohesive book. And so I think that's a really big strength of this spin-off series. Now, I've gotten this question before, and many people have asked me if you need to read the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy before jumping into this. And I would say, yes, you probably should now that I've read both of them. There's some spoilers as to what happens in Kingdom of the Wicked. Now, one other thing to note about Kingdom of the Wicked specifically is Kingdom of the Wicked is shelved as YA and is absolutely not in any world that's out there a young adult book. It is extremely spicy. It's extremely violent. So just keep that in mind. I'm not sure why it was ever shelved as YA. Maybe the same way as Akatar, I guess. But that is definitely an adult book. So just keep that in mind if you're a young adult reader and prefer young adult books. This is the adult spin-off series to that book as well. So there are some of those themes present in this book as well, but I personally didn't find it overpowering. I thought the plot was a major part of the book, and that's what I want in books. There can be spice, there can be romance, but the plot needs to be front and center. So yeah, it is an adult fantasy romance. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Like I said, I appreciated everything being wrapped up in a pretty little bow at the end of the story. There are some like hints as to who future books could be about, and I did appreciate that aspect of the story for sure. All right. Also, with my TikTok, I do have a subscription where members can subscribe, and we do sub only lives, and we do sub buddy reads, and I do sub only videos and stuff like that. It's been really great to connect with you guys on a deeper level. But we vote each month on a book that we want to read together as well for our sub only lives. And what we ended up choosing was The Match by Sarah Adams. This was the Sarah Adams series that I haven't read. I've read the cheat sheet series, like the football romance one, And then I've also read her entire When in Rome series, minus one that just came out a few days ago. And so I was very excited diving into this. This is about a woman, and she has a seizure alert dog because she has, I forget exactly what seizure disorder she has, but she has a seizure disorder. And so she needs a seizure alert dog to have independence. And so she actually works for the company that she got her seizure alert dog from. And our male main character's daughter pretends to be him and sends her an email requesting a meeting to talk about a seizure alert dog because she wants one. And that's how our two main characters meet. And just the romance story from there is so heartwarming. There were multiple times throughout the story that I teared up because of the little girl and her seizure alert dog. This is single dad trope. So if you like that, you're going to eat this up. Sarah Adams is a great author to read as well if you like closed door romances. It's also, she's such a witty and fun writer as well. These are true rom-coms, but I think where this one stood out versus the next book that we'll talk about by Sarah Adams is she really developed the characters and had such an emotional backstory and real life things they were going through as well. So in such a short period and time frame in the book. So I thought this was incredibly well done. For what it was. Obviously, this type of romance is never going to be like the same as like an in-depth, really deep rooted commentary that Emily Henry writes or Abby Jimenez writes or a fantasy that covers so many different topics. But for what it is, I think it's a 5-star read. And I'm very, very thankful and glad that I read this one. So if you relate to that at all, this is such a great one to read. There's actually Ariel, who's does a lot of stuff on my Discord, also has her own TikTok. She has a seizure alert dog as well. And she said that she connected so much to these characters. And it made me very, very thankful that there was a book out here that made her feel so seen. So highly recommend The Match by Sarah Adams. I ended up giving that one 5 stars. Then part of my reading goals for 2025 is I wanted to complete 5 series. So these are both a part of a series. So I thought to myself, I have the rest of the series for both of these, so I should just keep reading them. So the next book I picked up was Throne of Secrets by Carrie Maniscalco, which is book 2 in the Prince of Sin spin-off series. And this has ice dragons in it, which I was already in a dragon mood, like leading up to Onyx Storm. So I was so excited to dive into this one as well. This takes place in a different realm in the underworld with a different prince and a different female main character. And they're true enemies to lovers, like true enemies to lovers. There's kind of like a Cinderella type situation going on, like a masked identity type situation, and there's a lot of plot going on with these ice dragons. And basically what happens is these ice dragons have this disease that's scavenging through them to where they're turning on the princes and the demons that usually like interact with them. And so there's also a lot of court posturing, and once again it feels like Bridgerton meets a fantasy world. So I really enjoyed this one as well. I don't know which one I enjoyed more. I think they were both really well written and very cohesive. I heard a lot of negative reviews about this one, but this one was so good in my opinion. I was just intrigued the entire time. I didn't feel like a 600-page book, which this is a big book. Also, once again, I appreciate that the entire romance and story was wrapped up in one unit. And then also you were getting hints as to what the future characters and books could be about too. Like I feel like we'll have a vampire book and a fae book eventually. And then we'll also have one on another prince in the realm too, at least. So very excited and thankful that I finished that series. And then I also picked up the second book in the It Happened in Charleston series, which is the first book is The Match, and that is The Enemy by Sarah Adams. This is also like a little bit smaller of a read, so this one went really quickly. This was a gift from my dear friend Melissa, so thanks Melissa. I really enjoyed this one. I ended up rating this one 4 stars. Basically, this is about our male main character from this book. His sister runs a donut bakery, and her high school arch nemesis is a Michelin star chef, and they end up meeting again because their best friends are getting married to each other. So they're both in the wedding. So I do like a wedding setting, I will say that. I do like their banter back and forth. I think that was the highlight of this book. It was so good. The romance was just okay. I just feel like I didn't like really connect as deeply with these characters as I did with the characters in book 1. Like just what they were going through didn't feel as like fleshed out, if that makes sense. But I really did enjoy the banter. And this is like, these are true rom-coms, true closed door rom-coms. And I just think they're a really, really, really fun time. So you can't go wrong with a Sarah Adams book. If you're in a book slump, pick up a Sarah Adams book. If you want a filler book between heavy fantasies, pick up a Sarah Adams book. Just pick up a Sarah Adams book in February because it's Valentine's Day and it's going to be a good old time. Carlos tries to steal our identity, pick up a Sarah Adams book. If you know, you know. Anywho's, I then picked up another book that I'd been wanting to read, and this is actually on Prime Reading. So I actually started reading this on Prime Reading. And this was Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. So this has been recommended to me, I don't even know how many times. And I was like, I'll get to it. I've had it downloaded on Kindle Unlimited until I canceled it for like at least 6 to 8 months. But I was like, I actually saw a Raven-haired reader here on YouTube talk about this series and really love this series. So I've been meaning to pick it up. But it's just one of those things where I was like, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it. Well, I finally got to it and I'm obsessed with it. This is such a good series. I actually just finished book 2 last night. It's already February and I'm just loving it. I love the characters. The side characters are developed and fleshed out so well. There's so much intrigue. It's just amazing. I can't give away too much because it kind of goes into like the main plot and spoiler territory, but essentially our main character Diem is a mortal and she's born into a world with several different realms, and in these realms there are descended and mortals. So descended are half god, essentially, and so they have magic, and mortals obviously are mortal, they're not immortal and they don't have magic. And so the descended rule and kind of oppress the mortals. And so Diem is a mortal healer and her mom goes missing and things happen from there where her life is kind of turned upside down. And that's the best way I can describe this book to you. This one went by so quickly. It ends on the craziest cliffhanger. So make sure you have book 2 ready to go. If you have Kindle Unlimited, all 3 of the books that are currently out are on Kindle Unlimited. Right now, they are traditionally publishing them. They were typically indie published. So books 1 and 2 are published, and then book 3 will be available for you to buy in March. My Amazon says March 11th it'll get to me. I've also picked up a reread. This is an audiobook reread, and I picked up the wrong one. Oh well, just imagine this says Throne of Glass, and that's what I read. So I reread Throne of Glass, an audiobook with my Spotify hours. I try to use all my Spotify hours each month. I'm like really big into doing that. I'm like, if I'm paying for that, I need to use all my hours. So I used the Throne of Glass audio hours for December and for January. So a little bit of both in both months. I can't speak today. And this was just as good as when I read it the first time. I was immersed. I was obsessed. I was Team Dorian 1 second and Team Kale the second. So I love a good love triangle. I love a chosen one trope. I love Selena Sardathian. She's such a fun character. I love Dahemia. I love everything about the Throne of Glass world. So it is my favorite series of all time. If you haven't read Throne of Glass, you absolutely need to. And you absolutely need to start with the Assassin's Blade. I will fight you about it. This needs to come first, and then Throne of Glass, and then we will talk. Thank you so much. And then finally, the last book that took me the longest to read, and for good reason. It is a chunky book, and a lot was going on. It wasn't just like a fantasy romance. It was a fantasy romance and a high fantasy hybrid, I would say. I picked up Onyx Storm on release day, and I read it basically until the end of the month. And this is great. I've heard a lot of criticism on it, and here is my critique on Onyx Storm. So first and foremost, the beginning is a lot of info dumping, and she throws out characters' names like we ought to know who they are. She needs an index like When the Moon Hatched. If you look at the beginning of When the Moon Hatched, at least for the Kindle version, I'm pretty sure it's at the end physically, but I'm not sure. There is an extensive index and glossary of terms and people and things, and we need that for this series if you're going to be throwing out all the things that you did. That being said, once I got through that, I was having a grand old time. This book is action-packed, and I feel like the pacing is interesting because with each place that they visit. I'm being intentionally vague. More plot things were happening, and I really enjoyed it. That kept me really hooked and intrigued on what was happening in the book. I was just going through a lot, like personally, when I was reading this book, so I think that kind of slowed down my progress a little bit. But overall, I am really interested to see kind of the resolutions for what happened at the end of the book. I was confused at first, but now that I've had time to like talk to some of y'all and like process my thoughts, I feel like it makes more sense. But I'm interested to see how it is. I wish it wasn't written the way that it did, though. I wish we had a little bit more context. It could still be a cliffhanger, which I've already run into a tangent on why every book needs to end in a cliffhanger. I don't get it. But I feel like we could have had a little bit more context and it still have the same effect. So I wish that that happened to some extent, but whatevs. It'll be interesting to get the next book. I can't believe we have to wait until 2027. That is very, very, very sad and disheartening to me. But yeah, those are all the books that I read in the month of January. I did start Glow of the Everflame, which is the second book in the Kindred's Curse saga, and I did finish it a couple days into February. So just know that's technically on my February TBR, but I finished it. So we won't be talking about it today, but it's 6 stars. So good. It did not suffer from middle book syndrome. I was obsessed with it. I was obsessed with the slow burn tension in it. So if you haven't read Spark the Everflame, Glow of the Everflame, that's my current hyperfixation series. Anywho's, on to the February TBR. So we're going to start with book club picks and sub buddy reads. So for my online book club through Discord, we ended up voting on books and we ended up voting on Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. One note that I have is Lynn Painter also does have a Valentine's Day, like Groundhog Day situation. It's called The Do-Over. So if you wanted a Valentine's Day book specifically in the month of love, that one's a good option. I've just already read it. I have not read this one, and I've heard only good things about it. So I'm excited to dive into it. This is the cutest cover that I've ever seen in my entire life. I have no idea what it's about. I'm guessing it's high schoolers because I think the sequel is college students. So yes. So we'll see. Also, I'm hoping that I actually like it because I'm not a movie person. I haven't seen like a lot of the major rom-coms that are out there. So let's hope that I can actually make it through and understand the references and it's a fine time. One book that I don't have yet that I've ordered from Amazon. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Is our sub buddy read, which is the second book on my February TBR, and I'll put it on the screen. And that's Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. So this is two competitive swimmers romance, and that's amazing. I'm so excited. I've read Ali Hazelwood's entire backlist, including the Audible novella. Is it Audible or Spotify? One of those two video game novella that she did. Well, one thing Allie does with her typical books is she'll choose a niche field to get into, like chess or swimming or science. Okay, I'm back, and hopefully it's not too dark at this point. But it's the end of my workday. I'm back for the rest of our February TBR. Like I was saying, Deep End, I really like how Ali Hazelwood chooses some sort of niche science field or field in general to get into, like chess or swimming, and just really builds her romance around it. I just eat it up every time. It's the same formula for every single book, and I love the formula every time. So I'm a big fan of Ali Hazelwood's book. So Deep End is our sub buddy read on TikTok for the month. From there, another book that I don't have is First Time Caller by BK Borison. And I think I'm going to recommend this one for my in-person's book club's book for the month since it's Valentine's Day this month. I know my friend Allie was also going to recommend it too. And it looks adorable. The cover is really cute. I ordered it through Book of the Month, so it's currently on its way to me. And I'm very excited to get into it as well. I don't know a ton about it, but it's a really cute cover. And I'm nothing if not a sucker for a good cover. Moving right along, I have a few other books that I would like to do. So first and foremost, another Allie pick. Allie just finished The Wedding People, and I saw Haley Pham read The Wedding People and really like it as well. I don't know anything about it, and she said she can't share anything with me about the plot, otherwise I would ruin it. So this is my only non-romance book that I have planned for this month. So The Wedding People is another book that I would like to get completed. I also have another BK Borison book. This is In the Weeds, or The Weeds. Yeah, In the Weeds. And I read Love Light Farm over a year ago. I think it was December of 23. So I'm jumping into this over a year later, but I'm really excited to get into this because I remember really liking the small town romance vibes in this book, or in Love Light Farms. And I believe this is a social media influencer and one of the workers on the farm. So I'm excited to dive into this as well. So BK Borson has a little bit of spice in her books, but I'm really excited to dive into this one. A book given to me by my sweet friend Melissa for my birthday was Meet Me in Avalon by Lindsay Cord. And this is also a small town romance. You'll see a theme this month. I'm very excited to get into this book. The cover is absolutely stunning. I would show you closer, but the dog is currently trying to steal the show. But I'm a sucker for a small town romance. It has dogs, it has donuts. There's nothing better. It has Melissa's stamp of approval. So I'm definitely going to be picking this one up this month. I've been saving it for a month, like this one, where it's on theme. And I think it's on theme with the Valentine's Day theme, you know? I also have Beg, Borrow, and Steal by Sarah Adams, also a small town romance book. This is the third book in the When in Rome series by Sarah Adams. So, book one covers a pop star that crashes in the front yard of a small town baker. So, this is the sister of the small town baker. So, I'm very excited to dive into this one too. The cover is just stunning on this one. I love it. Once again, I don't know anything about this specific book in the series, but excited to see what it is. And then the last physical one I have is How to End a Love Story by Yolin Kwong. I saw a couple people read this, but I haven't ever heard like a for set or for sure like review on it. So I'd be interested to see what the hype is about this book and if it's good. I see it everywhere. So I believe this is Emily Henry's screenwriter for her show. I think that's what it was. So I'm very, very pumped to give this one a try too. And then the last one that I don't have here, this one I didn't feel like it getting down off the top of my shelves, is by Elsie Silver. And this is a photo finish. And this is her next book in the Gold Rush Ranch series. I am currently trying to get through her entire backlist. So I have 3 books to go. And then once I finish these 3 books, I'm caught up. So now, like whenever a Rose Hill book comes out, I have all the context to her stories. Elsie Silver has done something really interesting where all of her books are connected within the same universe, like every single series. And so I really appreciate like knowing that. I really would like a like prequel series too of like the older adults in the Chestnut Spring series. I think that could be fun too. But I'm planning on reading a photo finish. I've liked this series specifically because it's so horse centric. And I think that's really cool because I'm a horse girl. If you didn't know that, I had horses growing up. Now I'm a doggy girl, but I was a horse girl growing up. So I really appreciate the horse commentary on that series so far. So yeah, that is the TBR for February. So as you can see, lots of romance books. I'm also currently reading Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, an audiobook. I don't know if it'll get done in February, which is why it's technically not on my February TBR. I'm taking it slow. I'm like 32% of the way through it right now, but it is a long audiobook and book in general. And the thing about audiobooks is I struggle to like stay motivated to like listen to them like a lot. So I don't know if it's going to be a February or a March situation, but either way, it'll be done by the end of March. That's the setting and the goal that I have for myself. But February is the month of romance, and I will embrace that overall. So yeah, that is my TBR for February and my January wrap up. If you've liked this video, please comment below, and also comment below a book that you plan on reading for the month of February. Some videos to come on my channel include a bookshelf tour. We'll definitely be doing one of those. I'll be doing a full month of romance reading, so that's what I'm going to start filming pretty soon here. And yeah, it's going to be a good time. So definitely subscribe to my channel and also check out my TikTok for some reading sprint lives. And I'm trying to do more on my Bookstagram too. So if you can go follow my Bookstagram, that would mean a lot to me as well. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with us in the Cozy Reading Corner. Marley says goodbye. She says goodbye. Bye. And thanks so much. Bye.